Brexit negotiations can't dictate the EU's agenda. The words of the European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker is right. After all, the common interests of 27 nations trump that of an island with a long history of going back on the terms of commitment with the continent. But Brexit is about more than just Britain. When East European leaders denounce refugee policy in sometimes Islamophobic terms, it's a reminder that the migrant crisis is the issue that's fueling the blowback against Brussels. So is the plan to reform the EU or copy Britain, as French far-right leader Marine Le Pen would like to do, and take a big bazooka to the notion of a common bloc that fights the continent's corner in a globalized world. Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the antidote to Brexit. And with us, Isabelle Jégouzot, head of the EU Commission representation here in Paris. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening.
From Strasbourg, Paolo Rangel, vice chair of the centre-right EPP voting bloc in the European Parliament, Portuguese member of the European Parliament. Thank you for being with us again. From London, Sunny Kapoor, managing director of economic and public policy consultants Redefine. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
All right. And Alexis Poulain, director of Euractiv France. Remind us what Euractiv is.
It's a network of media in 12 EU countries in 12 languages, and we cover EU affairs.
All right. To the France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. Brexit shouldn't suck all the air in the room, but it was very much the 900-pound gorilla as Jean-Claude Juncker delivered that big speech in Strasbourg at the European Parliament. Sanam Chantier has more.
An opportunity for the EU Commission chief to rally support for the tarnished bloc following Britain's vote to leave on June 23rd. Speaking before MEPs in Strasbourg on Wednesday morning, Jean-Claude Juncker also sought to reassure.
Think about our partners who've become concerned after Brexit and wonder if that might mark the beginning of the disintegration of the EU. We respect and regret the UK's decision, but the EU is not at risk. The UK must swiftly ask for formal withdrawal to put an end to rumours and doubts.
But the Juncker address offered few clues to the negotiations with London that the European Union insists cannot begin until Theresa May serves a formal notice, which sets the clock ticking on a 2-year countdown to Britain's departure. Separately, Juncker urged solidarity among EU member states when it comes to the worst migration crisis since World War II. Under the watchful eye of the EU's Federica Mogherini, he appealed specifically to Slovakia, which currently chairs the Union's Council presidency.
I'm urging the Slovak presidency to bridge the divergences and differences between those who are reluctant to integrate refugees in their societies. I am asking a strong and immediate action both from Greece and the European Union to protect what we call in French les enfants non accompagnés.
According to UNICEF, in 2015, over 100,000 unaccompanied minors applied for asylum in 78 countries. Meanwhile, the leaders of the European Union are preparing to meet in the Slovak capital on Friday to mull the post-Brexit order. Migration and terrorism will also top the agenda.
Yeah, the EU 27 meeting in Slovakia, 27 without Britain on Friday to come up with this roadmap. Let me begin with you, Sunny Kapoor. We heard how refugee policy high on the minds. It was, of course, the issue in the Brexit campaign. When you hear Jean-Claude Juncker say the EU is not at risk, does that make you sleep better at night?
Well, I don't think that's quite what President Juncker said. He did talk about an existential crisis. And I think everybody in any position of power or authority in the EU system is aware of the seriousness of the present problems. The fact that they're aware of them in itself doesn't make me sleep better at night, no. Because as much as the the euro crisis appeared to pose an existential threat as much as the financial crisis appeared at one time to sort of take the EU down with it. The present situation is by far the worst that the EU has faced in its entire history. And what makes it particularly bad is the multifaceted nature of the problems. There's a security issue, there's an immigration issue, the financial and economic issues have not gone away. That combined with the fact that we are now much weakened compared to where we were in 2008, 2009, when we had to deal with the aftermath of the Lehman's crash, because monetary policy is being rolled out at maximum possible capacity. There's not that much more the ECB can do. The EU countries are far more indebted today than they were in 2009. There's not that much fiscal capacity left. And the worst is that the political space available to the EU to reach common positions, take common action, that political space has shrunk to a level that I have never seen in my lifetime. And I think President Juncker started his speech with that, and therein lies the problem. Were there to be another shock of the kind that Brexit delivered, were there to be another economic or financial shock, it's not obvious that we actually have the financial, economic, monetary, and most important, political capacity to be able to respond. So Europe today is more fragile than it has ever been.
All right, let me just show you here. This is the front page of the French broadsheet of record Le Monde. Europe swamped in existential doubt. Existentialism, an important topic in this country. But jokes aside, Isabelle Jégouzot, existential doubt, the EU, with, you just heard Sonny Kapoor say, really no wiggle room should another crisis come along. Are we talking about the possibility of the whole EU crumbling? Because that's what Jean-Claude Juncker is alluding to.
Well, Jean-Claude Juncker was very clear and didn't escape the problem. It's true that the EU is today at risk, and it's today in a position where it could be very difficult. But what the president said is that he asked the various European leaders for more endorsement, for more ownership. And he made proposals for Europe to protect the citizen, and very important proposals, in particular regarding the borders, that European would be finally in a position to really secure its border. 1 year ago, the Commission made a proposal to create a European border guard and border guard system. And in 2 months, this will be in place, in Bulgaria in particular. So, well, there are European response. The Commission is working to protect, but nothing can be done without the member states. And that's also the very big message that the President of the Commission delivered today.
Can't be done without European states. And in fairness to Juncker, and I'll put it to you, Alexis Poulain, he did put forth something which has been talked about for decades, which is this idea of a common European defense. And he made the argument, he said, we have to be bold on this because there's so much overlap between armies and so much waste in terms of money. But then armies are at the heart of what national sovereignty is all about.
Pretty much. It's been this talk going on since '99 about this European army, and he didn't mention the European army. He mentioned the HQ of command in Brussels, somewhere in Europe, and a more integrated work with NATO. And I think it's because of Brexit. We can talk back about this European army.
With the British out of the room, it's easier to talk about it?
Of course it is, yes. Continental one being two leads in there, the French and the German, big weapon sellers, and the French being the biggest army. So
does that mean the French unwinding, though, their ever-closening ties with Britain on defense?
Well, these ties, they were never so tight. I mean, at one point there was this massive ship that was supposed to be built between France and the UK. In the end, it never happened. I mean, there's always been this kind of project, but it never happened. So sovereignty, of course, it's a matter of defense and army. And if you see that because the world has changed so much, and now we live and we are surrounded by crisis and a harsh crisis. I mean, Syria is there to stay for a long time. Turkey is now not a very safe partner for NATO. And then what will happen with the Kurdistan? When the Kurds will want their country, then Turkey will retaliate. And then what will happen then? And it's again the borders. So if you want to protect peace now, you have to talk about weapon selling and building an army. But it's not a very optimistic message about the future of Europe.
Paolo Rangel, thank you for being with us from Strasbourg again. The Guardian describing it as a 55-minute speech that included basically a laundry list of things that Jean-Claude Juncker would want. That's the same of any State of the Union address. But they also talked about things that weren't mentioned this time around. The standoff with Russia over Ukraine and that migrant deal with Turkey that Alexis Poulain was just talking about. Why didn't Juncker mention them? Paolo Rangel, can you hear us?
Now, yes, I haven't heard quite well the question.
The question was, why is it that...
it was about
why is it that...
the Turkey deal.
Yeah, why did Jean-Claude Juncker not mention the migrant deal? Why didn't he mention the standoff with Russia over Ukraine?
Well, if you look at the speech of Jean-Claude Juncker, I think that there are things that are quite important, but there are also some silences that are quite significant, so that they really mean something. They are meaningful. One is really this Ukraine-Russia issue. Another one is, for instance, the economic governance or the banking union. So there are, I think that the main goal of Jean-Claude Juncker today was to try to give us a picture of the topics where there is a quite broad consensus. Yeah. Even the defense union that you were talking about, it is quite consensual now. Even countries like Poland and Hungary are opening their doors to accept a kind of external security, where naturally they are very concerned with, especially Poland, with the Ukraine issue. But what I think is that it tried to avoid the topics, the issues, and that is one of them, that could divide deeply the member states before Bratislava.
Did he do the right thing?
As you know, I think he did the right thing because I should say that he made a very strong affirmation of the principles of the Union, and he gave a lot of concrete examples. For instance, the roaming example, or for instance, some industries or the border and coast guard. So he tried to highlight the main topics that he thinks that are consensual, and then to give some concrete examples of the work that the Commission and the European institutions can develop in the next year.
All right, so
this was, I think,
accentuate the positive.
A wise way.
You're saying it's wise. Accentuate the positive ahead of that summit of heads of state in Bratislava later in the week. Now, thinking that it wasn't such a wise speech is the pro-Brexit head of the British Conservatives in the European Parliament. His name is Syed Kamal. Let's listen.
It just seemed to be the more of the same. And not only that, more initiatives on top of it, more military integration, more Europe, more spending. And actually what we need is to take a step back and say, what is going wrong with the EU? How do we make sure we create better security, more jobs and opportunities for our citizens?
Yeah, the more spending, Sani Kapoor, an allusion to Juncker's pledge to increase that big EU infrastructure investment plan to 630 billion euros over the next few years. What's your reaction when you hear those remarks?
Well, first of all, I mean, they're coming from someone who obviously, if their own plan goes ahead, will be leaving the European Parliament very soon. I hope Brexit will not come to pass. So they need to be taken with a pinch of salt. And he contradicted himself at the same time as focusing on what he talked about, bigger spending, more Europe, etc. He also said that Europe should be focusing on providing more security, providing more jobs, which was exactly what those additional plans were about. And in fact, the Juncker plan, the so-called Juncker plan, the infrastructure investment plan, is something that, at least conceptually, all sensible economists across the world agree, particularly when European governments can borrow at effectively negative interest rates.
Could you say conceptually, because it's been 1 year, how's it going on that score?
It's doing, I mean, compared to the skepticism that greeted it in many quarters, it is doing okay. I think it's fair to give it an above average score compared to how low expectations were. It was a complicated design. It happened in a record time for EU institutions, the speed at which they move, and there wasn't that much new money available. And it's hard to see what would have happened in any case and what has been triggered and catalyzed by the fund. But I think on the whole, conceptually, it's moving in the right direction. This is when Europe needs to be investing in infrastructure, and both on the digital side as well as on energy and climate change, as well as expanding the size of the scheme. President Juncker was right, and I think the head of the British Conservatives was just being rhetorical and saying what was expected to him, appealing to the domestic home constituency in the UK. His remarks should be ignored.
All right. Part of that 300 billion is this blowback. Part of the other reason that people voted for Brexit is this blowback against austerity. And the idea now that we're talking about infrastructure projects, but some are saying that the sums that have been concretely given out so far are just a drop in the bucket of what that the EU could be a lot more ambitious.
Well, in this speech, the president really showed that there is ambition. Well, he's now proposing half a trillion by 2020. To have more projects, and as Mr. Kapoor just said, it works well, the investment plan. It really works well. It's already 100 billion who have been spent. For France, it's 15 billion, and in very concrete projects regarding energy, regarding HD. Well, it
then
works,
Europe has a PR problem, right? Because you're not getting that message out.
Well, it's now. Well, the other issue is that was particularly important in this speech is also his social message. I think this is something that was particularly important and which has been mentioned several times.
All right, we're going to pick up on these points when we come back. You're watching the France 24 debate.